So, ladies and gentlemen, continuing on the same topic of cycling, I was telling you about how there were protests held in the Netherlands following the high rise in the number of child deaths on the road as a result of an increased use of cars. And I told you that over the 70s, pressure was applied from several different directions, and ultimately change came about. And the government decided to opt for cycling as a way of helping the citizens of the Netherlands to get around in a better way. The aim of all of these measures and initiatives was to put people at the center of urban planning. But it wasn't just about changing infrastructure, as I was describing earlier. There were also changes in the law, in what we would call the highway code in the UK. The one fundamental change was that the larger vehicle in an accident was deemed always to be responsible for the accident. So this means that if a car hits a cyclist, then the car is assumed to be the first one to blame. Or if a cyclist hits a pedestrian, then the cyclist is assumed to be the first one to blame. And this basically means that all road users have to keep their eyes open for the more vulnerable road user. Another change was that all motorized traffic now has to give way to bicycles when turning either left or right. So this means that if a cyclist wants to go left, or if they want to go right, then they will have priority over the motorized vehicle. And this has all meant that the mentality of the Dutch has changed. Their way of thinking about the bicycle, their way of thinking about the use of the road has changed. If I'm to compare the mentality of the Dutch with the mentality in my own country, in the UK, then I'm sorry to say that we do not think the same way as the Dutch. Sadly, my feeling is that in the UK, cycling is seen as a frivolous activity. If you're cycling on the road, then it's seen as if seen that you're doing this as a hobby, or because you want to go out and enjoy your Sunday afternoon on a bike, or because you just enjoy cycling as a leisure activity. It's not really seen as a serious solution for getting from A to B in a city. It's almost, sometimes I even get the impression that in the UK and maybe in other places like here in Brussels, cyclists are seen as people who simply get in the way of the serious adult business of driving a car, as if driving were the only serious thing that you can do on the road. I have seen positive changes both here in Brussels and in the UK. Every time I go back to the UK, I take my fold-up bike with me and I cycle around the streets of London to get around. And what I've seen is that there have been positive changes brought in mainly by the Mayor Boris Johnson. He's done his best to improve the situation by bringing in cycle superhighways which crisscross the city and which allow you to go on long journeys on protected cycle lanes across the city. And now we are indeed starting to reap the rewards of these new measures. The other day I was cycling back in London, and I actually, at one point, it was 9 o'clock in the morning, and for a few minutes there were just bicycles. There was a steady flow of bicycles peacefully cycling along the road, and there were no cars at all. And it was a very nice situation to see. But there are still many changes. We need to change attitudes above all. Whenever a new cycling infrastructure is proposed, there are often hostile reactions. We've seen that here in Brussels recently with the new pedestrianised area. People say that more cycle lanes will lead to fewer lorries and trucks being able to supply local businesses with their produce, with whatever supplies they may need. And it's said that if we set aside more space for bikes, then this will mean more congestion because the cars won't have enough space. But in Utrecht, I saw when I was there that they take a very different view. There is practically no conflict between cars and bicycles. People seem very happy. They live in a city which is quiet, calm, which has clean air, and in local shops, business is booming. People love just jumping on their bike and popping around the corner to the baker's or to the butcher's, to a bookshop, to pick up something nice and easily without having to think about where you're going to park your car. So public space is simply more pleasant if you promote the bicycle. In an age where it seems that children are more likely to die from obesity than cancer when they get older, we should really promote cycling so that obesity among children is reduced. In Utrecht, 50% of all children go to school by bike. Now, some of us might think that cycling is a dangerous activity, above all for children. But here's an interesting statistic. In the Netherlands, less than 1% of cyclists wear a helmet. But the Netherlands is the country with the lowest rates of head injuries in the whole world. This just goes to show that cycling is not dangerous. The only real danger for cyclists are motorized vehicles. So I think that those who take decisions regarding our transport, those who make decisions on transport policy, should spend a few days in Utrecht before deciding what is good value for public money and what isn't. I spent 2 days in Utrecht cycling around. I saw hundreds of thousands of bicycles, but I didn't see a single cyclist. I saw just normal people going about their day-to-day lives normally, wearing normal clothes, not wearing lycra, not doing anything special, just getting from A to B by bike. So cycling is simple, fun, easy, cheap, is good for our health. I could go on and on. The bike has a true potential to change our world, but only if we let it. Thank you.